What's up, guys? On today's episode, we're going to be working on a 1994 Eagle Talon, but the interesting part is it's stuck in the woods. So that and a lot more coming up on this episode of Drive and Protect. All the way in. So they touch up right now. You can hear it. This is what was inside. Oh, God. Based on the emails and pictures sent by the customer and a quick inspection a few days earlier, step one would be to pick up a bunch of safety supplies at Home Depot. Now, because of the mold and decaying rodents, the stench was so bad that a respirator would be number one on my list of things to get. Next would be finding a full-body Tyvek suit to protect my skin and clothes, box of plastic bags, and a few dozen throwaway terry towels to mop up the 10 years of neglect. Clearly, after that much time, mold and moss is growing out of the hood, the headlights, there's spider webs on the wheels and inside on the dashboard, seats, steering wheel, and doors, making for an extra creepy detail, wondering what I might run into as I evict these rodents. Well, the first things first is I needed to get the car out of the woods, so I called my buddy Dan to help me dislodge the Talon from its grave with his new van. To do this, we raked around the car and then tried to dig out all the dirt around the wheels, thinking it would just pop out with the van. So we hooked up random tie-downs that he had in the back of the van to the tow loops on the front of the car. Granted, this was not ideal, but it was worth a shot to get it to budge so we could push it into the driveway and detail it. But because we only had old ratchet straps and no tow chains, it clearly didn't budge, but it was worth a shot anyways. So instead, we called in the big guns from Grand Prix Motors. With the truck now stable, my friend Michael secured straps around the driver's side front axle and hooked the tow line to the straps. All the while, he was laughing at us for our feeble attempt with the van. One little tiny flick of the lever and the Talon emerged from the woods easily with the big rig. Although it was exciting to see the car come out of the woods, I was even more excited to see that none of the wheels were locked up, so it was great news for the owner. Next, he propped up the front wheels to swing in the wheel lift arm so he could back it into the corner of the driveway for our detail. Okay, now that the car has been pulled out, that was quite a bit of a fiasco there, and we're happy that the wheels weren't locked up. We put it on pavement so that we can actually do something to it and not be stuck in the woods. The mosquitoes are out of control here. So the first thing we're gonna do is just literally take off the pounds of dirt, and we're gonna use some compressed air. I'm not quite sure I wanna use a power washer on this because I have no idea the integrity of what's going on here. And then we'll rinse it down, and before we get into the interior, we're gonna have to suit up because it is so bad right now that it's borderline dangerous, if not over that borderline. So yeah, we have a whole lot of work to do to kind of get this into condition. If a lot of you are asking yourself, why are you doing all this? The gentleman wants to take it back to the Caribbean, but to take it back, you have to do some mechanics, and there's some of these things that need to pass before you ship it. And it has to be clean, it has to be safe before anyone's gonna work on it, so that's why I called this in. So we got a lot of work to do. While inspecting the car a bit closer, step number 2 before introducing any water would be to blow out and hand grab any leaves or caked on mud that could be removed before mixing it with hose water. We were also conscious enough to make sure that we put the wildlife back in their home, and I think we found the renter who made all the spider webs on the interior of the car, but thankfully he took off into the woods on his own. Next, it was time to suit up before opening all the doors to encourage air movement, as the source of the strong odor was definitely emanating from the trunk. Upon inspection, standing water and absolutely disgusting moldy towels were the source of this putrid aroma. At that point, we decided to clean the outside of the paint first because we were getting filthy leaning over and reaching in, so we covered the exterior in all-purpose cleaner and let it sit for a few minutes while I filled the buckets with Brute wheel soap plus Boost and a handful of terry towels before filling it up with water. Obviously, this was by no means a delicate wash, more like a shock and awe type wash to knock down the insane odor being released and agitated by the power washer, especially in the door jambs, the hood, the trunk jambs, and of course the trunk itself. Absolutely disgusting smell coming from it. Okay, at this point in the process, we've basically done the first wash and just tried to get as much junk off the car as possible. It is by no means clean. We first started to do it without the suit, and we blew up a lot of dust and a lot of junk that we started coughing, and we just said put everything on, because really this is for the interior. But as we started using their power washer, which originally we didn't have the hose, so we asked the people next door if we could borrow the hose. Now we're power washing it, which is making life a whole lot easier, but it's looking halfway decent now, but I cannot express the smell that we have right now that's choking up even when you even when you use the power washer. It's just this waft of danger, so I can't even imagine what's going to be inside. And again, we power washed the motor because it doesn't run. It's 10 years old, hasn't done anything, but clearly you can see a lot of work has been done to it, so they're going to take it out and do whatever, but right now it's just about getting all the animals out of it. With wash number 1 done and most of the heavy door jamb mud removed, we focused our attention on the interior mold and bacteria removal process. To do that, here are some of the tools you'll need. Okay, now we're starting the interior, and as you saw in the intro, it is beyond bad. So in one of my previous episodes a couple of weeks ago, we worked on my Chevy Impala, and I had a few little dots of mold. I cleaned it with shag, scrubbed it down, wiped it, and we moved on. This is a completely different beast, as you can imagine. So we have different tools. First off, obviously you have the aerator, protective gear here, but I went to the store and bought terry towels because we're gonna throw them away. I don't wanna use my microfiber towels and rewash them. It's not even worth it. I usually wear black gloves, as you guys know. I'm wearing orange today because in my mind, my orange ones are, once I'm done with them, if I see any of them anywhere, they go right in the garbage if they're not coming out of the box, as opposed to my black ones where sometimes I pull them off if I'm just polishing or whatever, keep them to the side and reuse them. These I don't reuse, so just helpful for me to try to avoid getting sick. We have the Festool Vacuum, the one I use all the time, but we're going to change and use a new cartridge, a new bag here, and the machine itself has a HEPA filter, again, good for that. We have plastic bags. Make sure I'm filling the plastic bags with everything that we find and just going to toss it out. There's no washing. We have the steam machine. Again, we have all of our tools to protect ourselves. You don't always want to use steam, but in this case, it's so bad we're going to use steam, but make sure you have an aerator because you are sort of atomizing or putting all that mold into the air, those mold spores. So, have some protection. Then what Dan's doing in the background there is using a scrub pad. Again, we're going to throw these away. And 50-50 white distilled vinegar and water, and that's helping to knock down all the mold and all the smell and all the stuff that's very dangerous. But afterwards, we're going to hit it with shag to kind of clean out the vinegar smell, because obviously you don't want a car smelling like vinegar. And then some baking soda when we go and vacuum it up. So that's kind of the plan of what's going on right now. But I'll pull you in and show you the steps. It is absolutely disgusting. With Dan's vinegar step completed on the driver's side, he then used the steam machine to blow out the door handle, buttons, and other tight spots, while I wiped down the passenger side with our vinegar mixture. Notice how dirty my scrubber and towel were after a few wipes. However, while Dan was steaming the HVAC vents to motivate any other animals to find a new home, I found my first of many mouse skeletons under the seat, which I had to vacuum up because I couldn't reach it by hand. Now you can understand why I have a separate bag in the vacuum for this particular car. Then I opened up the glove box and found exactly where they were living.
Oh, I just opened up the glove box and this is what was inside. Oh God, there's actually dead animals in there too. I gotta pull the camera in. This is so disgusting right now, I have to show you.
After that horrible nightmare was, of course, the trunk, which was another treatment of the vinegar mixture and soaking up the standing water. Luckily, the carpet was removed, so most of the cleaning was on top of the trunk frame or the metal, making it much easier than cleaning fabrics. At the same time, we decided to remove the sagging headliner and vacuum out the spotted white and moldy-looking headliner cushion from the roof. Then I added baking soda to the carpets and left it in there for a while we focused on stage 2 of the exterior cleaning. All right, at this point, we're pretty much done on the interior. Woo! It's a lot of work. So I wanted to pull you in and show you right here. This is a perfect example of paint. When the sun hits it, it actually chews up the clear coat. Now, right around this edge right here, you can see there's clear coat, and then all the top layers, most of the top red has actually faded. Most OEM vehicle paint consists of 4 layers. The body material, which can be aluminum, carbon fiber, plastic, etc., the primer, the base or the color we see, in this case it's red, and the clear coat, which is usually polyethylene paint without color pigmentation, which is why we call it clear coat, and it's basically as thin as a piece of newspaper, not including the other 3 layers. What you're seeing here is the degradation of the top layer of clear coat due to the lack of UV protectants like paint sealants that either absorb or deflect the harmful sun rays, which will result in chalky or dull-looking paint over time. You see that little line right there? So this is clear coat back then because it's 94. Usually late 80s is when they, sort of all put clear coat on the car, every manufacturer. But as you can see the line breaking here. Now if I were to rub this, like when we were washing it, we put our wash mitt up like this, those towels, and they turn red because this has no clear coat anymore. Now if you notice, see how the clear is somewhat here on the vertical surfaces, but as you get to a spot where it pops out a little bit, see how it starts to turn again? Again, that's just because the sun is beating down. It kind of makes sense. Anything that's vertical is usually going to be a little bit less damage. Anything that's horizontal takes the full impact of the sun, burns off the clear coat. In the upcoming weeks, I'll be releasing the next series within the AMMO Training Academy that focuses on paint correction or the preservation process and what you need to know about your paint, residue control, a detailing mindset shift, machines, polishes, and a lot more to arm yourself before you ever touch the paint. I'll post a link above when it's ready. And after a few hours, the paint is starting to come back to life. Well guys, it's the start of day 2. Now we worked as hard as we could yesterday, but we ran out of light. And when you run out of daylight up in the woods here, the mosquitoes come out and it's crazy uncomfortable. So we stopped polishing, but we got most of the car done. We're gonna finish up a little bit today. But the other thing we found out was as you're polishing the paint, you're sort of vibrating the paint or shaking the paint, and even more junk just keeps coming out, even though we power washed it down. So we're gonna re-power wash it, foam it down, scrub it again, sort of dry it, take another look at it after we've finished compounding, and then put some protection on there, work on the wheels. The wheels, we need to work on those separately, and then maybe give the guy a call and the car's gonna be ready to go. Dan and I finished the last of the paint, carbon fiber hood, and the mirror in about an hour or so before giving the car an actual foam and boost wash as you would in any normal situation, which clearly this is not. The first wash yesterday was really just to kill as much as we could before even attempting to seriously touch it. This time, we focused on releasing the hidden dirt within the wing and used an interior scrub pad on the glass with soap because it was extra dirty, or in this case covered in sticky tree foam. Then we power washed it again and dried without hydrate and a microfiber towel, and used a compressor for the tight spots. Before correcting the paint scuffs, we wanted to ozone the interior and leave it on with the baking soda on the carpets while working on the exterior of the car. But remember, the battery was obviously dead and our window unit was not going to work without lowering the glass. So instead, we rigged up the trunk hatch to draw in fresh air into the machine while blowing ozone into the cabin for the next few hours. Next, we mixed touch-up paint and a bit of lacquer thinner in a cup and filled the reservoir of our master's airbrush kit. With the damaged area so big and requiring an actual real paint job, the airbrush can be a great way to cosmetically clean up the harsh color contrast of yellow scuffs against original red paint. It goes without saying, but make sure the area to be painted is clean, dry, and of course oil-free. I'll have more videos on this procedure coming soon, but in the meantime, check out what an airbrush can do and if it's right for you. While the paint was drying, we polished the rims and filled up the tires just to get the wheels to roll a bit easier on the eventual flatbed to the mechanic, but most of all because we took a bunch of pictures for the owner and wanted it to look as good as possible so he would be excited about his long-lost car. The engine was also looking cosmetically better, and more importantly, the mechanic is less likely to be bitten by something in the restoration process. Afterwards, I applied 2 coats of AMMO Reflex 2.0 prototype. Now, I've been playing with this for a long time, as most of you know and have emailed me about. It's amazing, simple, and has insane reflection, as you can see here, from left to right. It'll be released when I'm totally ready and satisfied with my various quality testing. I'll post a link above when it's ready to go. Finally, we pulled out the ozone machine, cleaned the glass, vacuumed up the baking soda, emptied the vacuum bag and filter, and tossed out the rest of the dirty towels in the trash before calling it a day. All right, guys, well, we're all finished and the car looks spectacular for what it was. Now, if you remember way back there, that's where the car sat for almost 10 years. And then when we pulled it out, we certainly had a bit of work to do. More importantly, there's going to be some mechanics working on the engine, and there was a lot of things in there that could hurt them with the mold, and there's leftover animals, that kind of thing. So we really cleaned it up to get it into a condition where somebody could restore this. Mind you, the gentleman, Al, hey, if you're watching, I hope you enjoy the video. you know, really loved the car and he wanted to bring it back to where he's living now in the Caribbean. And I think we may have surprised him a little bit with how good the paint came out. So I think he's going to focus on the engine for a while, and then, you know, he can drive around town with the paint looking like this. And then when, you know, he gets some time, he can work on the bumper and other things. But as always, big shout out. Thank you to Dan back there. If you guys have any questions, shoot me an email at larry@ammonyc.com. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.